Looking at the title of this video, you're either saying to yourself, why would someone have to make a video on how to use a shock pump adapter? Or you're saying, finally, someone has made a video on how to use this Topeak 90-degree shock pump adapter. There are some full suspension bikes where the design makes it a little difficult to reach the Schrader valve on the shock, so you have to use this adapter. So this Topeak adapter came with a new bike, a 9er RIP 9 RDO. And what I didn't know and didn't realize is that this is a one-way adapter. So I hooked this up to the shock, I put the shock pump up to it, and nothing happened. Let me demonstrate. So I've got the adapter threaded onto the shock, and then I'll thread on the shock pump. And then normally what would happen when you hook up a digital shock pump like this one or an analog one is you would get a pressure reading, but I'm not getting any pressure reading at all. So what you have to do with this adapter is you have to go beyond the pressure that's in the shock. So I know I've got about 125 PSI in this shock. So I've got to go up to about 135, 140, and then I'll start to get a reading. So once I went up pretty high, and actually that time I had to go up even higher, then the valve will release and you'll get your shock reading. So I know I had about 125, so it's up to 127, 128. Now just a tip, if you absolutely cannot get a pressure reading, what I had to do was I had to release all the air out of the shock and then come back up with the shock pump. So if you don't get a reading, you may have to do that. The other thing about this adapter is, like I said before, it's one way. So normally if you wanted to decrease the pressure in a shock, you would just hook up your shock pump and then press the release valve and then let air out. The problem with this one is when you do that, the valve closes off inside the adapter and you basically just have the shock pump go down to zero. So the way that you would reduce air pressure in your shock is you actually have to undo the adapter. Then you have to let some air out of the shock, and depending on how much you're trying to reduce the shock, I mean, you may not have to do too much, but I'm gonna have to I wanna go back down to about 125, so I just need to let a little bit out. And then you'll reinstall the adapter, and you'll notice I still have it mounted onto the shock pump. That has to be pretty snug, by the way, and then pump it up. And so I probably have about, I would say maybe 70 PSI, so I've got to go up a little bit, and then once it gets above the pressure that's in the shock, the valve within the adapter will release, and then I'm just going to go up to the shock pressure that I want. And now I'm at my desired pressure. So there you go, the Topeak 90-degree shock pump adapter. Not quite as intuitive as you would think, but once you understand how it works, it's pretty simple. And fortunately for setting your rear shock pressure, it's typically something that once you get it, you don't have to mess with it. As always, questions or comments that you have about this video, leave them below. Thanks for watching.